Hey, come on. I know, that's me. The one with the darker sweater.
With the bowl cut?
Second service, you feel the freedom to just
It
put
was
in
the
your
style
comments.
at the time. I'll show you my third grade photos. I had a way more major bowl cut, so.
Yeah, that's me about second grade. I know. I'm cuter now. So second grade, that's when it kind of started for me. We lived in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, and down the end of the road is a gas station, not a gas station, like a convenience store called Liberty Park. And in second grade, I remember going there, and I found my first magazine, my first pornography magazine. And I remember at this little age of feeling excitement, kind of a thrill, and yet then also feeling a lot of shame and feeling a lot of just different feelings. And for me, as I grew up, I had this gift maybe of always finding these magazines. And they were always like they always seemed to be there. And I just sometimes I wonder, it's so interesting that I can remember the first picture that I ever saw of pornography, but I can't remember the first ice cream cone that I ever had or the first piece of pizza. I mean, there's something that happens within our brain that just embeds in there, like a cements there, and it forever changed the trajectory of my life. So bring us fast forward to today. I can't imagine my life, what it would have happened if I would have had pornography as easily accessible as a phone or an internet. I can't even imagine where I would be today, but I really believe that I would not be sitting here today because of the impact that it had in my life with how hard it was to find. And so the nature of our message today is really, we're not here to shame you. We're not here to critique anybody. We're really here to help, to really talk about, I call it an elephant in the room, to talk about an issue that almost everyone in this room deals with, but almost no one is talking about. And so we want to just bring it up. We want to talk about it. We want to be super real with you and just hopefully continue to have this conversation about a very taboo topic. And we also want to help protect our children that are living in a very, very unsafe world.
Yeah, and so we want to give some stats, some information. None of this is to fearmonger you, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to make you aware. Because the reality is this is just the truth of the world we live in, and we need to be aware of it. For Christian men who are aged 18 to 30, so my age bracket, 77% of them report looking at or consuming pornography at least once a month. That number goes down to 64% for men ages 31 to 49, but still 64% of Christian men age 31 to 49 consume porn at least once a month. And from conversations with people, typically the average person doesn't want to consume pornography. They're not necessarily looking for it because they desire it. Usually it's they'll fall and then they'll get back up and then they'll do really, really, really good for a while and then something happens that brings them right back down and the cycle repeats and starts over for them.
Yeah, and we used to think that this was primarily a female thing. Rather a male thing, excuse me. We used to think it's primarily a male issue. And so previous this message, I would have highlighted things like, so girls, maybe you don't deal with this, but maybe you deal with, we call it pornography in writing. That's kind of somehow my message way of went before, but statistically the numbers are changing. Right now it is 40% of women reported viewing pornography in the previous year. 40% of females have reported seeing pornography. There's one statistic that I couldn't verify, but it said something around 48, I don't remember the number, was 48?
45 to 48, something like that.
Something like that, 45 to 48% of Christian girls, college-age girls, are viewing it as well. And so there is a movement, and it's also hitting the females among us as well. So it's no longer just a guy thing. It's also a girl thing. Nationally, 84% of males, 57% of females ages 14 to 18 have viewed pornography at least once.
Yeah, to give an idea of the scale of the level of reach that pornography has, we verified this stat yesterday.
Yeah.
As of yesterday, 3 of the top 15 websites in the world in the United States are pornographic in nature. So consider the popularity of sites like Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, I think now it's called X or whatever,
yeah.
Which, horrible name choice for multiple reasons. But they're used by millions, if not billions, of people on a daily basis. And so for 3 sites to be in the top 15 is insane. 2 of the websites alone are more popular than the social media platform TikTok.
Yeah.
And 4 of them are more popular than Netflix. I mean, the reach that it has in our society and in our communities, it's everywhere. We can't escape it, really.
And the largest pornography site out of all of those that were listed right now has 130 million visits a day, 42 billion visits per year, and has enough video uploaded every 12 months that it would take 169 years if you watch them back to back.
Yeah,
that's just one site. It does include all the other hundreds of ways of dealing with it. That's one site.
Right, yeah, that's one of many, many ways that people today have access. And here's the things. We're talking about the elephant in the room. We're bringing up some really tough information and realities. And again, we're not here to shame you, right? We're not here to say you're bad people, you're bad parents, whatever the case may be. Think of it like this. Your homes, yourself, and your family are a fortress. And to properly guard a fortress, you need what? You need to be in a watchtower. You need to be aware of what's coming. You need a shield in one hand and a spear in the other to fight for your family. And that's what we're here to do today. We're here to give you the information to put you in the watchtower, give you the resources and the knowledge to shield yourself and your family, and give you the weapons that you need to fight back and to win.
Let me just define pornography for a moment. And so if you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 15 to 16, it says this: "Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ himself? Shall I then take the members of Christ and unite them with a prostitute?" The answer is like, no, never, of course not. Like, we get the idea of prostitution is wrong. The word for prostitute is the same word that we get the Greek word for porno. It's the word porno. It's where we started with. And so the idea of pornography is really an idea of prostituting ourselves with somebody emotionally, mentally, that we're giving part of ourself to them in a very prostitution type way. Jesus really clarified this super clear when he said this, Matthew 5:28, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." And so the idea is that Jesus says, hey, if you even look at someone with lust, with a lustful desire, you've already committed adultery. And so if you understand the idea of pornography as both adultery and prostitution, like we're committing in it, not just the people we're viewing, but us participating, we're becoming a part of that. All of a sudden, books like Proverbs just pop open. We've been going through the book of Proverbs this last year, and you will see over and over again Solomon warning us, stay away from adultery, stay away from the prostitute, stay away, and all the ramifications that come. You can put in the idea right there of pornography. The ways it destroys is just evident throughout the book of Proverbs.
Yeah, and then oftentimes we hear a message like this, or we're giving these stats and information, and people go, is it really so bad? Right. There's a lot of, I'm going to call it propaganda about the positivity of sex work in the porn industry and things like that. And the reality of the answer is, yeah, it's that bad. In the process of doing research, I kid you not, we've read stories and we've heard things that happen on a regular basis that just made us sick to our stomachs. I mean, we could probably spend the next 2 hours sharing those things.
They
alone.
really are horrible, horrible stories. And if you look, I actually gave you guys a guide. I hope that you will take the time to look at some of the things. But the stories that people have dealt with are absolutely horrific, horrific stories, and you will never be the same again.
Yeah, no. And really, to give an idea of how bad the industry is, for some fun homework, go crack open the book of Leviticus, read chapter 18. It's a whole passage on specifically sexual morals, who you are and are not allowed to, mostly not allowed to, have intimate relations with. And the pornographic industry thrives and bases most of its work off of violating those laws, those standards, things that God has set up and put in place to make it God-honoring and good. It is quite literally a twisting of that which God has made for us.
Yeah, I would even me just say this, a lot of people that struggle with LGBTQ type issues really struggle as a result of things that happened in their past life and are prone towards that because of hurts and abuse and can't find trust in one relationship or another. And you just see that over and over again, but recognizing that in the beginning, God created sex, right? Come on. Don't act like you don't enjoy it if you're married, right? So God created sex between a man and a woman for a lifetime. That was God's idea. It was God's institution for a relationship. It's what God designed. And the fact is that Satan does distort. Like he came to steal, to kill, and destroy. And his whole purpose is to take the very good things that God made, to distort them, to tweak them, and to destroy our lives. Sexuality is one of them. And pornography right now is probably one of the top issues that's absolutely destroying relationships in marriages today.
Yeah, and there's even just a few popular culture myths that we kind of deal with on a regular basis when it comes to just the idea of sex. One of the ideas is that it's going to be beneficial to us in our bodies and our marriages and our relationships if we get to explore around and, go figure out what you want, figure out your needs, things like that. And the reality is actually those who have a higher number of romantic partners are statistically more likely to experience dissatisfaction in their marriages and their relationships, whereas people who have fewer partners are actually more likely to be satisfied in their marriages and relationships. And so really this idea of gaining experience and dating around or whatever you want to call it, it's practicing us to be divorced before we ever even get married.
Yeah.
It's not setting us up for health. And realistically, we have become kind of, I think, almost ignorant in some ways to how pervasive it is in the world. We have, anybody familiar with the term nose blindness? Right, where you get used to a smell so long that you kind of stop smelling it, like if you have some garlic in the trash and you kind of forget about it. Then you leave your home for a couple days and you come back and you're like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Has this been here the whole time? We as a culture have kind of gone sex blind. It's everywhere. It's so everywhere and in your face and shoved down your, everything all the time that I think we actually forget how bad it is. I was thinking about this earlier that I've seen commercials at 2 p.m. on a Saturday watching, streaming shows with my wife that would have made me blush at 11 at night 10 years ago.
It's true.
I mean, things that people just put on TV nowadays, I think if you mentioned it earlier, if we do a media fast for 30 days, come back and you will be mind blown at just how radically sexual everything seems to have become.
Yeah, we really have allowed so much. I think if we're honest, right, if we're just transparent, we've allowed so much into our lives that dishonors God and really is destroying the relationships that God came to protect. So if you are struggling, if you are going through a difficult time with pornography or that whole area, how do you get out? And we just want to share just a couple things. The first thing is this, you can stop. You can, I promise you, I don't care if you've been struggling for 50 years, you can have victory over that stronghold in your life. You can be a victor over the what happens in our brain, the dopamine, all the things that you've learned, you can break free from it. You can.
Yeah, we actually have a few encouraging statements from people who have quit, from people who have broken past this. One of them being, everything has improved. I'm no longer depressed. I'm no longer ashamed. Yeah. I can more authentically love people for who they are, because the reality is Porn kind of wires your brain to see people as objects, not people. Increased ability to focus and accomplish my goals. Like, it actually has such a hold on people's life that it operates like a drug, where it becomes the priority. It becomes the focus. And I have improved the relationship I have with myself and with my wife. These are just from random people. Anybody who has quit has experienced this kind of transformation in their lives.
Yeah, so where do you start? The first place to start is if you're struggling with any sexual area, start with repentance. Jesus, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is the area that I'm struggling. I need your help. Forgive me. Forgive me. Listen, if you struggle today and you struggle tomorrow and you struggle for the next 50 years, every time you fall, every time you give into that temptation, it's a moment where you say, God, I am sorry. Forgive me. And here's the cool thing about God. His grace is big enough for you. Every time, every situation, his grace is more than enough for whatever you struggle with, whatever you're going with. God's grace is so much there.
And the other thing to really be aware of, too, is once you repent, now you need to be aware of what you do going forward. And a helpful tip is to be aware of your brain. You need to kind of be aware of what triggers you, so to speak. I wrestle with anxiety and obsessive-compulsive tendencies, and so I need to be aware for that of what's going to set me off, what's going to push me down a path that I don't want to go down. And so we are taught right in Scripture. Romans 12:2 tells us, don't conform to what? The patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because the reality is that often those who are addicted or just struggle with, in general, pornography, it's not the problem itself. Usually it's a coping mechanism for a deeper issue, for a deeper problem, or it's a pattern we run to because it's all we know how to deal with. Because that's what our brain does. Our brain develops habits. It develops an easy neurological memory. And so you don't have to think about, how do I brush my teeth every time you go to do it? Your brain just knows how. How do I operate my car after you've been driving for 20 years? You just know. You've learned. It's so ingrained in you that you can just do it without effort, and your brain doesn't have to work as hard to make it happen. And this is the same way with lust and with pornography, is that we have a tendency where the habit is, well, when I see some exposed skin, I'm going to look a second time or linger a little longer.
Or a third time and a fourth time.
Right. Or if I'm home alone and I'm bored, well, that's a great time to look. Or if I am depressed, well, you know what? I feel happy for a few moments every time I look, so I'm going to go look.
Dopamine works. It is a rush for a moment.
Yeah, it works, and that's why we turn to it. Or maybe I'm stressed. I just got some bad news at my job. I need something to do. I don't know where to handle this. And again, I need that dopamine rush. I just need it to hit my brain and feel good for just a few fleeting moments.
Yeah, so as your brain was trained one way, part of beating the habit, part of beating the sin, is to train your brain another way. And it can happen. So we know now that the brain is very plastic. It's very trainable still. And so you develop new habits. And so, for example, if every time you went home and then when no one was there and this is where you went into looking at something on a phone or a computer or like you start training your brain, when I go home and no one's here, now and you fill in the blank. Maybe for you it's like, you know, when I'm really struggling, like for me, like one of the things that I do is when I get stressed. And so if I get stressed, maybe that's a place where you can fall into temptation that way. And you can be on social media or you can be in pornography. One of the things that I do when I get stressed so I don't fall into an area like that is sometimes I put on like really heavy metal music. Like for me, that works. And so, you know, if I'm in the office and they hear like, okay, it's great for pastor, right? So sometimes I hear a knock on the door, are you okay? But you have to retrain your brain and learn new things, new coping mechanisms. Maybe another one is, maybe you learn how to pray when that happens. Maybe you start writing in a journal. Like maybe you, they say a cold shower really does work. And so when you're going through a moment and whatever you've trained your brain to do before, you untrain it. And this is the cool thing. If you do something consistently over 30 to 60 days, you will rewire your brain to learn new habits. The hard part is you can go back to the old habit if you fall and you have to retrain your brain again. But listen, you can retrain your brain to break some of the things that you've been training your brain to do.
Yeah, you really can. And if you want just kind of an easy resource, if you're hearing this going, I don't know where to begin with all of that, go look up. You can just hop on Google and Google Atomic Habits Summary by James Clear. And he gives this really great guide on how to build good habits and the method you need to approach to make that possible. He also gives you a great guide. Basically, it's the inverse of making good habits for destroying bad habits.
Yeah.
And so that's another great resource. I don't remember if we have that one in the book or not, but that's another one to keep in mind if you're really struggling with a starting point for habit building.
Number 3. So train your brain. Number 3, listen, don't keep it a secret. Maybe that should have been right in number 2. But Satan's strategy is to get to keep your sin a secret. And if you won't tell anybody, shame builds in. Shame is like a cycle, just keeps repeating itself. Shame, sin, shame, sin. It's just a cycle. Tell somebody. Tell somebody. Celebrate Recovery meets every week at 6:30. Go to Celebrate Recovery. Talk to them. Tell somebody you trust. I'd be happy to meet with you. I personally, every single Thursday, I've got a friend of mine that calls me and he says, hey, Pastor, how are you doing? How's it going? So there's an accountability that happens that way. So tell somebody, ask someone to keep you accountable. Like, open up, like the elephant. Face the elephant in a room. Start talking about it. Start being vulnerable about it. Let's have a conversation where we're there one for another. Amen? Like encouraging each other. So yeah, and don't keep hiding it. Talk about it. I have another one, don't I? Number 4. Get a blocker on your phone or device or Covenant Eyes. I share that on every device that I have Covenant Eyes on my phone, on this computer, on my Kindle. So every device that I have has Covenant Eyes. Everything that I look at, it has an alert that gets sent to my accountability person. Some people use blockers. I don't use blockers because I just found that it was almost like a challenge then to beat the blocker, which is not good. And so I'm just like, it's there. Someone sees it. If I want to go down that path, someone will see it. But find something. Greg Groeschel, who's very well known, very popular pastor, for his life, he sets up where he can't download any app, period. So he's got accountability on everything that he does, and on every phone, every device, he can't download his own apps. He has other people that download the apps for him. He doesn't even access social media. I didn't realize this, but he doesn't look at social media at all. So Greg Groeschel from Life Church, every social media post is not Greg's. It's somebody he pays to post for him. But he doesn't even access social media because that is a struggle for him. So I thought, it's not that we're all these, not that we're falling every day, but the reality is we're all prone. We're all human. We're all able to fall that way, and Satan is really good at deception. So set up some guardrails, set up some boundaries, put something on your phone, your device to protect you.
Yeah, and Scripture tells us to flee sexual immorality, right? Not key choice word there. Flee, bolt in the other direction. Right. And so Jesus in the Gospels tells you, it's better for you to gouge out your eye or cut off your hand than for the whole of your body to be thrown into hell. And so don't be afraid. Nobody cut off limbs.
Yeah.
Look at me right now. Keep your body intact.
No eyeballs poked out either.
Exactly.
So no gouging of the, don't do it.
But we can do a sort of other metaphorical gouging of the eye, right? If you know social media is an issue for you, purge it from your phone.
Yeah.
Just don't go on. You embrace FOMO. You're going to miss out.
If you can't do complete purging, try it for 30 days.
Yep.
I'm just going to try 30 days. Just try it.
Yep. Keep your phone out of your bedroom. Keep your phone out of your bathroom. Keep it out of places where you know you're vulnerable or you're weak. Don't be afraid to go to a little bit of extreme measures to protect yourself and your family. It's okay to draw some hard lines in the sand.
Yeah.
And then the other one we have is, while we're doing this, don't let yourself make excuses.
Yeah.
It's really easy to kind of try and justify and go,
I'm just a man.
Right, it's not that bad. I have needs. We're not zombies. We have willpower. But discipline yourself without shame, right? One of the ones I go to is men of God don't think like this.
Yeah.
Men of God don't treat people that way, right? However you want to phrase it, that's mine for myself, is it's not I'm a bad person, I'm a terrible place, but it's I've been called to a higher standard.
Right.
And this is what I need to fulfill, and how I'm acting right now doesn't fulfill it. And so don't make excuses, but don't shame yourself on the other end of it.
Yeah, the thing that I use often is, that's not who I am. And so when I'm feeling tempted to do something, or I'm like, nope, that's not who I am. It's not who I am. It's not who I am. It's not who I want to be. So not who I am. So that's the phrase that I use a lot. Finally, listen, don't ever give up. As you fight the battle, as you engage people, become a part of Celebrate Recovery. I can talk to people, have people that keep you accountable. But whatever you do, don't give up. If you fall 100 times, get up 100 times, maybe you're 1% better every day, but never, ever give up. Listen, your life is too important. God made you too special, too unique. Don't give up. Keep fighting for the life that he made for you. Keep fighting for purity. Keep fighting for the relationships that God has placed in your life. Don't ever give up. So we have a book, and it was tough. So we have 8 pages of notes. And there's so much that will help you. If you didn't get a bulletin, I think we're out. There might be some books left, but I guarantee we'll have some more next week if you didn't get a book. But take a look. Even if you don't struggle, I would say even more if you don't struggle, get a book, because we need to be informed. Being naive is no longer okay. It's not okay to be naive. It's not okay to shut our eyes. Like, our world is in trouble. We're in trouble. Relationships are in trouble. Like, we have to be aware of what's happening. So a couple resources I just want to shoot out real quick is a podcast, really good, is Overcome Pornography for Good by Sarah Brewer. It's a very good podcast that deals with pornography without giving shame. The Fortify app is a very good accountable app. There's a movie called Nefarious, not the one that some of you watch, the horror movie. This is Nefarious, Merchant of Souls, and you can rent it. But it deals with real life stories of people going through the sex slave, going through what we think that prostitution, or that's rather pornography, is glamorous, that the person in the picture is like, they want to be there. They don't. They don't. Even the ones that say it's consensual, if you really get to the root of it, a lot of it came out of abuse, and they're responding to abuse. A lot of it came out of coercion. Listen, it is a horrific situation every time. Every time.
Yeah, and so the other part of why we want to give everyone resources, why we're going over these stats, what we're going to kind of shift into and look at is the parenting side of it, right? I'm a parent, you're a parent, a lot of us in here are parents. The reality is, our kids are going to learn. They're going to learn at some point, right? And so they're going to learn what sex is and all of that. And the question is it going to be from somebody else? Is it going to be teachers, coworkers, the internet, friends, whoever? Or is it going to Hollywood, or is it going to be us? Are we going to be the ones to teach our kids, even if it means we have to be really uncomfortable? Because I can tell you, for me, I was first exposed through curiosity. I was about 12. I was going through sex ed at school, and they only teach you so much. And I was a curious child. I wanted to know more. I had questions that were left unanswered. And so I turned to the internet. And I saw things that I can't ever unsee. And I actually have seen things that, to this day, because my brain was so moldable as a child, that they can just flash into my mind. They haunt me like ghosts. Yeah. They really do. I mean, it jacks our kids up.
It does. Yeah, check this out. So the age of 12 right now is the average age of first pornography exposure, 12. There's a very high statistic that it's even younger than that. 8 years old was a really big number that we looked at for a season. Listen to this, 93% of boys, 62% of girls were exposed to internet pornography during their teenaged years. 92% of boys, 62% of girls exposed to pornography when they were a teenager. According to a 2020 report, approximately 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 10 boys aged 13 to 17, all minors, reported sharing their own nudes. Like this is a horrific topic right now. There's actually in the book, I highlighted a resource with an asterisk. It's an article, a PDF that you can read, but it gives shocking numbers of what a current trend is with just people sending nudes of themselves to other people, especially with our young people. It is absolutely horrific. what's happening with our kids. And just because they've been so sexualized, it almost feels like it's a normal part of their life. 1 in 5 kids ages 13 to 17 said it's actually okay to share a nude as long as you send it over an app that doesn't save it. Like, this is our kids. This is the ones that are in kid zone, like in teenagers. Like this is our children. That what they're growing up in is absolutely horrible place. Church, we cannot be naive. We have to talk about it. We have to bring it up.
Yeah, and actually, out of those teenagers, approximately 1/3 of them report having seen non-consensually shared nude images, which means that the person who is sharing them does not have permission, does not have consent to share the images that they are sharing. And actually, those things, it's legally considered by law enforcement because they're moving away from the term child pornography. They're moving, it's called child sex abuse material. That's what it's legally classified as. And the hard part is, like, people use online spaces to recruit for sex trafficking. This is a stat from 2020,
and
but out of
listen to this. This is like, just pay attention, please.
So out of all underage victims that were recruited for active criminal sex trafficking cases online, 65% were recruited through Facebook, 14% were recruited through Instagram, and 8% were recruited through the app that lets you share images and deletes them afterwards. 8% were through Snapchat.
Yeah.
That should floor us. 65% through Facebook.
So we're not trying to scare you. We're not. But we have to just keep this open. We have to keep talking about it and stop making it so taboo. Over the years, I feel like we've done a great job as a culture of dealing with what we call stranger danger, right? And so we have this idea, we've been teaching our kids, hey, if someone talks to you don't know, you get away, don't talk to strangers. We won't typically allow kids to go hang out when they're 8 years old in a playground by themselves without a parent somewhere nearby. We don't typically drop off young kids at a mall and say, okay, see you 3 hours later. That's kind of changed a lot since I was growing up, and it should. But listen, the hard part is we have done a really good job of trying to protect our children from, predators and perpetrators and horrible situations in public. But do you realize that, like, many of us are allowing the most vilest perpetrators, the most vilest offenders to go into your children's rooms, to go into their bathrooms, to go into your living rooms, to go into your basements, to go to your kids' friends' house, all of that through a phone, through an app, through a computer. We've done a great job at trying to protect our kids from tangible people we can see. Most of us have not done very good at recognizing that there's horrible people just one click away. Just one click away.
Yeah, and the reality of this is it's not even just our kids. Any one of us is a click or two away from seeing just some of the most, not even necessarily pornographic, but just vile, violent, disturbing images. I mean, I had to be careful opening Instagram this morning because I was genuinely worried with the conflict happening in Israel that I was just going to have death in my face thrown at me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't go looking for it. I was worried it was just going to pop up in my feed. And the reality is there are people who market and sell things and influence online for a living. That job title is called that for a reason. They are influencers. Buy this, vote this way, think this way, talk this way, focus on this idea. And I remember growing up when we still had computers in rooms and not just holding them in my hand like this. And I had rules to follow, right? No going on the computer alone. You don't browse the internet, go into chat rooms by yourself. Don't believe everything everyone tells you on the internet because people lie, and things like that. Or actually, the one I remember the most is be careful what you post because once it goes on the internet, it goes on forever. And these are rules. The internet has become so commonplace. I think we've forgotten these things that we put in place to protect ourselves when it was still more of a Wild West kind of idea.
Right, yeah. So what do? Listen, if you have children, even teenagers, right, set up some house rules, set up some house guidelines. Not just for your children, but for anyone that comes to your home. So set up filters. That's at minimum. Every home should have a filter. So we have, I forget the name of that internet it's the new one.
Highline.
Highline. It has really, really good filters that you can use. It gives you an app to use. So, use that. Use the Circle is a great one. Now, there's probably 3 or 4 in this thing, but please don't just assume that your kids aren't going to see it or you aren't going to see it in a vulnerable moment. At a minimum, get a filter at your home as a start. Another one, CryPhone is another router. But resources in the book. And then the other thing is this: recognize that there should never be a device, and you've touched on this, should never be a device with internet in a private space, ever. Like someone that has an internet should not be in a room with a phone by themselves or in a basement by themselves, in a bathroom. Like we knew this with computers. You did such a great job of touching on this. When computers first came out, the rule was you never put computers in a room, right? Remember this? Like you always keep it in public, but somehow we forgot it when we got phones, and now we have kids with phones in their rooms. And let me just say this, look, I'm not shaming anybody if this is your story, right? Like that's not what we're here to do. Like, so if you're in that place, like please don't hear me condemning you or shaming you or saying you're parenting bad. We're just really are trying to help, and so forgive me if you're hearing that. We're just trying to protect our kids and protect your kids, and just kind of speak on the topic. So
yeah, and some other great helpful ideas are really simple. Set up tech-free time in your house. There's a couple hours a day after dinner before they go to bed that maybe no phones, no computers, no tablets are allowed. It's family time, right? The kind of unspoken tragedy of our technologically engaged age is families don't really engage with each other the way they used to. And so pull that back, reclaim your family, reclaim that family time, but also don't be afraid to have open conversations with your kids about stuff they see online. Tell them what an unsafe image is. Have them come to you or somebody that they can trust if they see something that makes them feel uneasy or sick or hurt or scared or just uncomfy. And please, again, we're not trying to shame you. Don't shame our kids. Don't be mad at our children for something they didn't purposefully find. If they found it on accident, odds are good they probably don't want to see it again. They just don't know how.
You hit on a point there. And I know when I first saw my first pictures when I was in 2nd grade, I condemned myself so bad for so long. I actually started going to counseling just to deal with how bad I felt as a 2nd grader. And honestly, I didn't even know any better, right? You know what I mean? And so, just be present for your kids. Finally, before we have 2 more questions, is this. Can I just encourage you, be a safe house. So as you parent your children and think about their devices, think about people that come to your home and their devices. Set up some home rules for everybody. Let's just be that kind of people that care for one another enough to have the awkward conversations. Like if someone comes to our home at night, if they're spending the night, all the devices go upstairs. I don't care what you do at your home, but if you're in my home, all the devices go upstairs when you go to bed because it's just too difficult. It's too tempting, even though we have filters on all of our internet. So all devices go upstairs. When our kids were younger and they were spending the night at somebody else's home, it was this really awkward conversation. Hey, my name is Jason. I'm so-and-so's dad. I need to ask this really weird question. What kind of guardrails do you have for internet safety at your home? Had it more than once. And if they had no guardrails, our children would not spend the night at their home. Because kids are too important to us, right? Are you with me? So have awkward conversations. Again, we're not here to shame or beat anybody up. We're just trying to, let's just have conversations. Many of you have very young children. The hard part is going to be for you that you've already kind of dealt with it. Now you have to undo some things. We're praying for you. Right?
We're here for you if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's 2 questions and we're going to be done. By the way, so I've done this message in different parts. By the way, this book is almost completely new. A lot of new insight, 8 pages this time. So last time I did something similar, this was in the summer of 2017. So get this book. But 2 of the questions that have come up over the years is this. When is my child ready for a smartphone? When is my child ready for a smartphone?
Well, some of you may be hearing some of the stats we've talked about this morning, and you're
Never,
going, never,
right? Never.
My kid's never
As a matter
getting
of
a
fact,
smartphone.
I'm going home and I'm taking every smartphone from everybody in my house, including my husband.
Yep, gonna smash it with a hammer. But no, realistically, there's not a great need for most children to have smartphones before the age of 16.
Right.
I mean, generally speaking, most of the things that we need a phone for emergency situations are sufficient with like flip phones or, more older, I guess, to use some Gen Z lingo, boomer style phones. It really, it's not a need. Right? It's not a need. There's a lot of features that, like, most 8-year-old kids, kids don't need to play Candy Crush. They got the great outdoors. We got a cool playground. Like, let them have fun, Yeah.
Let a kid be a kid,
let
right?
A kid be a kid.
Yeah. Or you can give them I know some people have a watch, to call their parents or a flip phone, but I would, every family, you set up your guidelines in your own home, but we would just encourage you, not until they're 16, to have a legitimate phone. When should I allow my child to go on social media? Do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I get all the hard topics again?
Yes.
Never. No, I'm kidding. Half kidding. Again, you hear all the stuff we talk about, and some of us might go, I might need to put some heavier rules in place at my house. And that's okay. That's an okay thing to do. But realistically, most sites require a minimum age of 13 to sign up. We'll agree with that. No earlier than 13. But here's what I'll say is if you're going to allow children on that young, my recommendation, heavy parental supervision. Parental supervision, parental controls, monitor their friends list, who they follow, whatever it may be. We're the parents, we're the boss. We do get to decide the rules, right? The good old my house, my rules. Your house, your rules. Be empowered by that. Keep your kids safe. All of that is to protect them, but also to still help them be connected and engaged with the world.
Yeah. Number 3, how much time should they be allowed on social media? In your professional opinion?
In my professional opinion, it can vary from kid to kid. Some children cannot be trusted for a long time on social media because they're addicted to it and they need to be broken of it. Others are great. They know how to, they're really good at regulating themselves, how they spend their time, things like that. And so you really have some free reign in this area. Know your child's age, behavior, ability to self-regulate, maybe even base it off of their grades or their performance in school or other extracurriculars. Ultimately, at the end of the day, again, parents, you're the boss. Time on social media is a privilege, not a right. Yeah. Right? No, there's nothing so important that happens on social media that it is a human right to be on Twitter.
X.
I'm calling it Twitter.
I believe that we have the ability to change the future of our culture. I believe we do. And it's going to happen when we get together and talk to one another as parents like we used to do, like my parents used to do, with other parents and have conversations and just like be really vulnerable with one another. And if you don't know who to talk to, listen, I'd be happy to talk with you. I promise I'm not going to judge you. I promise you that. Let's just fight the battle together. No one alone. No one being condemned. No one being shamed. No matter what you've done, no matter what you've allowed your kids to do. Like you hear that, right? There's just no condemnation, no shame, but we just want to battle this together and fight with one another.
Can I add just one additional thing? We covered it a little bit earlier. God wants you to win.
Yeah.
God hasn't set us up to fail, right? His word tells us that there's actually, for every temptation we bear, he gives us a way out so that we can endure it.
Yeah.
God wants you to win. We talked about how the enemy thrives in isolation and shame. So where does the glory and the mercy of God thrive? In community and in shameless discussion.
That's good.
We are here for each other, and we need to be here for each other without shame because God is empowering us to win that battle.